All right, that looks good.
Thank you.
I've got the agenda ready in just one slide. If you just tell me when you want it up, I'll pop it up.
Since we're streaming live, I think makes sense to put the title screen on.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
I've got the agenda ready in just one slide. If you just tell me when you want it up, I'll pop it up. I didn't hear that. What's that?
Since we're streaming live, I think makes sense to put the title screen on.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
I've got the agenda ready in just one slide. If you just tell me when you want it up, I'll pop it up. I didn't hear that. What's that?
Since we're streaming live, I think makes sense to put the title screen on.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
Got the agenda ready in just one slide. If you just tell me when you want it up, I'll pop it up. I didn't hear that. What's that?
Since we're streaming live, I think makes sense to put the title screen on.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Are we ready to begin? Sounded like we had a little technical difficulty there.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I think we're ready. I will let Will or Kurt. It looks like Mayor Aponte. Do you have a question? Hi. Mayor Aponte raised his hand.
Will, are we ready to go?
I think so, Administrator Fulton. Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. It's 2:30 Eastern time here, and I'd like to go ahead and open the meeting. This is the EPA's Small Communities Advisory Committee meeting and public meeting. It is scheduled to last for 1 hour, and it precedes the full LGAC meeting. My name is Brian Fulton. I'm the County Administrator for Jackson County, Mississippi, here on the Gulf Coast, and I'm currently serving as the Chairman for the SCAS Committee. And so I wanted to welcome everyone to the meeting. I wanted to say thank you for your participation today, and also for your participation in the letters that we'll be reviewing today and previous meetings that you have attended. This is a very important committee within the LGAC and EPA, where this is actually where the small communities have their voices heard and get to collaborate and add things to the recommendations that go to the EPA for consideration. And I'm honored to be the chairman of this committee. So thank you for joining us today. Today's meeting, we're going to deliberate on the 4 draft letters of recommendation that were submitted by the work groups of LGAC. We'll also discuss some possible priority topics that we may want to focus on next year as a committee. And at the end, if we have time, we may get to hear from a new employee with EPA or a new position with EPA that is assigned to small communities as it relates to certain issues. So at our meeting on the November the 23rd that we had, we reviewed the charges and prospective letters of recommendation from each of the LGAC work groups. Since then, the work groups have refined the recommendations and formatted them as an official letter from LGAC to EPA Administrator Wheeler. The input we gave on the 23rd was incorporated into those draft letters, and the goal today is to add any further input and then present that, if any, to the LGAC members later this afternoon during their LGAC public meeting. So having said that, I'd like to introduce Britt Carter, the Assistant Deputy Associate Administrator for the Office of Intergovernmental Relations, to give a few welcoming remarks. Britt?
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Administrator Fulton. We really appreciate your leadership here on SCAS. And thank you to all the members for taking time out of your schedule for our work group meetings, as well as your input here today on our 4 draft letters of recommendation. You know, Administrator Fulton said this a little earlier, and I just want to reiterate how important it is to hear from you all. And you know, SCAS is about the unique circumstances that small communities and rural communities face, and we're just really looking forward to receiving your input on how EPA can better serve your communities. So thank you so much, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Britt. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And next, I'd like to introduce Victoria Ludwig, who's our DFO for EPA, and to do a roll call. Go ahead, Victoria.
Thank you, Administrator Fulton. If I could interject, however, would it make sense to have Will or Kurt give a few housekeeping instructions to the members about participating today?
Sure, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Will, are you there?
Hi, everyone. Kurt. I think Will may be on mute as well. I think some of the things we had discussed, which Victoria covered just prior to the start of the meeting, was basically muting and unmuting yourselves. And Will and I will ensure that everyone is muted so that we don't get a lot of background feedback. But please remember to unmute yourself before you speak. You also have the raise hand option off to the bottom right if you have a question or you would like to speak. We also covered the renaming yourself so that those that are viewing the meeting on the streaming side of it will know who's speaking. So please remember to do that. And I think that covers it for the housekeeping items we discussed.
And since we've got so many people today participating, when we do the roll call, can we have each person kind of introduce themselves and just give just a brief summary of who they are and what they are doing as part of the committee or part of their position?
Yes, that's great. I will go slow through the roll call in that case. I'm going to stop my video so I can take notes. Okay. We will start with our LGAC chair, Commissioner Kitty Barnes.
I'm here.
Do you want to introduce yourself? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm the chair for the LGAC and county commissioner in Catawba County, North Carolina, about 30 miles north of Charlotte. And I look forward to going through the agenda this afternoon. Look forward to hearing from each of you. Thank you.
Secretary Jeff Whitty, who's the LGAC vice chair.
Good afternoon, Jeff Whitty. I serve as Secretary of Agriculture for the state of New Mexico. Look forward to the discussions today.
Next, we have Mayor Jose Aponte.
Good afternoon, I'm here. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of the committee.
And you represent the city of Carolina, Puerto Rico.
Yes, it is. The city of Carolina, Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, yeah. Okay, Town Administrator Rodney Bartlett. Okay.
I was about to say, please remember to unmute yourself before you speak, or you can just go ahead and do it now, and then we can mute everyone after we've done roll call.
Okay. Thank you for that reminder, Kurt. Let's try one more. Town Administrator Rodney Bartlett, are you here today? Mayor Vincent DeSantis.
Yes, I'm here. I'm the mayor of the city of Gloversville, New York. I'm fairly new on the subcommittee, but I'm excited to be here and happy to take part in this.
Great. Next, we have Mayor Ella Jones.
Hi, Mayor Ella Jones from the city of Ferguson, and I'm excited to be here, a part of this committee.
Welcome, Madam Mayor. Commissioner Joan Lee.
Good afternoon, everyone. I represent Polk County, Minnesota, up in the northwestern part of the state, where I live. I'm approximately 2 hours away from Canada, so way up there. We're fortunate that we have very little snow on the ground right now, so that sounds like it could be changing by the end of the week, but I could go for a non-white Christmas, actually, even though I love snowmobiling. New to the committee this year, I do appreciate the opportunity to the communication and networking between other communities and areas that have the same issues that we have up here in northwestern Minnesota.
Thank you. Town Manager Susan Lessard. Okay. Next, Chairman Carvel Lewis.
Good afternoon, everyone. Carvel Lewis, Unified Government of Georgetown, Quitman County, Georgia's second smallest, but greatest place to live in the state of Georgia.
Welcome. Next up, we have Vice Chair Gabriel Lopez. I'm going in alphabetical order. Should have said that. Supervisor Ann Malik.
Good afternoon, everyone. I represent the Whitehall District on the Board of Supervisors for Albemarle County. We're about 100 miles south of Washington, D.C. in the mountains, so please come and see us.
Yes, it's a beautiful part of the state. Next, we have Commissioner Victoria Reinhardt.
Thank you, Victoria. I'm Victoria Reinhardt, Ramsey County, Minnesota, and I am not a member of SCAS, but I am the chair of the Revitalizing Communities Work Group for LGAC.
Thank you. And next on the list is Secretary Michael Skews, but he told me that he is actually meeting with the governor right now of the state of Delaware. He is the Secretary of Agriculture for that state, so understandable that he can't make it. He will be here at 3:30. And next, I think she might not be able to make it as either, is Commissioner Libby Szabo. Okay. And last but not least, Chairman Sean Yanity. Okay. Is there anyone else on the call that I missed?
Cynthia Pratt. So I'm Lacey, Deputy Mayor of Washington State, and I'm actually representing the National League of Cities, the Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Committee. Lacey is right next to Olympia, so but we're almost as big.
Thank you. Yeah, and I forgot to say, I noticed, Administrator Fulton, that there are several other members on the line. They are not necessarily members of SCAS, but I think it'd be great if they could introduce themselves, and maybe you can explain the voting rules when we get to that point. So anyone else, please go ahead.
Good morning. It's morning here anyway. Carmen Ramirez, I realize I was confused about this, but I'm happy to listen in. I am Mayor Pro Tem for the city of Oxnard here on beautiful California coast, and I've just been elected to Ventura County Board of Supervisors, so I have to find out if I can still stay on the committee, but I'm happy to listen in. Thank you.
Yep, and likewise, this is Representative Ryan Mckenzie, a member of the LGAC Committee at Large, and member of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives for the past 8 years, where I serve on the House Environmental Resources and Energy Committee.
And I'm County Supervisor Bruce Bracker from Santa Cruz County, Arizona, and I'm on the LGAC Water and Air Committee.
Mayor Paul Tenhaken in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I am on the LGAC and just really listening in today. Thank you.
Mayor Bill McMurray, I'm listening in. I'm on LGAC as well.
And what city do you represent?
St. Joseph, Missouri.
Awesome.
Mayor Matt Cerency from Hawthorne, Florida, a member of LGAC, as well as Vice Chair of the Water Work Group.
I think that's, is there anyone else that, I think that might be it. Anyone else?
Yes, my name is Lisa Lonefight, and I'm Chairman Mark Fox's Science Advisor, and he's a member of LGAC, and he represents our tribes, which are the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Iroquois, located in North Dakota.
Thanks, Lisa.
Okay. Well, thank you for going through that, Victoria. And like I said, welcome to everyone. I'm glad that we have a large meeting today. I think this is the biggest one that we've had with SCAS, and so appreciate everybody's participation today. And I want to jump right into the letters. I'm sure that you received probably more than one email with a copy of the letters that we're going to be reviewing today. I think they may be available in the chat box as well, if we've got that part worked out. But I just want to kind of hit the highlights of those and just introduce what the charge is, and then kind of briefly cover some of the recommendations in the charge, and see if there are any additional comments or any thing that you would like to add to the letters. We've already gone through this one time on the 23rd when our regular SCAS call. And at that point, we had the committee chairs for each of the work groups kind of explain what the charge was and what the recommendations were. And there were a lot of questions asked then, and some things incorporated to the letters that you have for review. So in jumping right into that, I'm going to go to the first one, which came out of the air work group, but it's the LGAC letter on Office of Air and Radiation proposed national program guidances for fiscal years 2022 and 2023. The charge that we received from EPA included 3 questions. The questions were, what activities at the local government level should EPA identify to help us achieve our long-term performance goal of reducing the number of non-attainment areas? The second question, are there streamlining opportunities that you see for the national program guidance that would help its utilization? And third, what local circumstances should EPA better address in its national program guidance? And gave an example of prescribed burning as one circumstance. The recommendations that came out of it, they're not in bulleted form, but just summarizing those. It first says that the LGAC supports the EPA's goal that the 2022-2023 NPG reflect Office of Air and Radiation's overriding long-term strategic goal of reducing non-attainment areas nationwide. I think from my perspective, that's a good idea. The LGAC encourages the EPA to consider the impacts of air pollutants that travel across local, state, and national borders. The EPA should factor this in when making attainment determinations. The LGAC encourages the EPA to account for the fact that air pollution can be caused by natural phenomenon and natural background conditions. And the LGAC recommends the agency make additional accommodations for prescribed burning and other naturally occurring sources of ozone. And so that's kind of the summary, and there's a lot more to it. We can go through it, individual recommendations if you want, but that's kind of the summary of the questions and the recommendations from the LGAC. Are there any other additions or questions or any deliberations that we would like to have as it relates to this? And I'll open that up to the committee.
And just for everyone's benefit, I am sharing my screen and the letter is on the screen. If you need to use it, I will. If you need me to scroll or move forward, just let me know. And we have Supervisor Ann Malik has risen her hand.
Thank you very much. And I do not intend to try to throw a bomb here. I just would like some clarification. Is the goal of this to clear the books of things like non-attainment areas, or is it to really work even harder to solve the problems that cause these things? The reason I ask is because previous 4 or 5 times, 10 times ago, governor in Virginia decided he would close the books on about 40,000 buried fuel tanks because he didn't want to have that on his record. So he just zeroed them out. And that set us back about 20 years as far as cleaning up these things. So I guess I know it's impossible to have something where everyone is supportive of the same thing because of all the different needs that different communities have. I just really want to know that we're still trying to lean on EPA to do their job and to really support the local governments who are trying very hard to control all these different elements that have been described today. Thank you.
And I believe that's the intent. I mean, I think the big idea is to have a better quality air, you know, and to be able to manage those things that we can manage more effectively and for the benefit of the community and everyone involved. But I think the recommendations, or at least the way I read it, are some things that EPA should consider that are outside of the control of the local governments, like the pollution that may come across state and boundaries that we really don't have any control over. And then in my particular area, there's a lot of background ozone that's created through prescribed burns. We have a lot of naturally occurring bayous and sea breezes and those things that we really can't control. So it's just, and I don't think that we're asking them to change the standards or anything. It's just, you know, an awareness of what we're dealing with and some things to consider when they're looking over this issue. That's Brian Fulton's opinion. There may be some others out there.
Thank you.
So is everyone in general in favor?
I have my hand up. I have my hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
So Cynthia Pratt, and I'm from Washington State. In fact, why I was late, I was on an ORCA Zoom meeting which is Olympic Region Clean Air Agency. And so I too wondered if we needed to make it sharper that we are trying to reduce the impacts of poor air quality in here. It wasn't quite as clear as I thought it should be. And then secondly, I'm wondering if we needed to encourage EPA to look at things like other monitors that would help capture that even our citizens could use to evaluate air quality and to encourage reducing, say, wood smoke, which is our biggest issue, is wood stoves and wildfires. So to getting rid of wood stoves and replacing them with some kind of ductless heating system and stuff. I'm just throwing that out because I don't see this being as directed to cleaning up things to make it healthier for people, and then to coming up with suggestions that they could implement. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Brian, this is Commissioner Lewis from Georgetown, Georgia. As a part of the AIR work group, one of the things that we desperately wanted to do, I think you have addressed in your comments, and I want to make sure that the two previous comments that somewhat gave the impression that we were not trying to be stringent, to make sure that they know that in the notes and minutes of our meetings, we do want to ensure that there is healthy air for every American. However, you have already given an instance of border states, and in our example, where I am, we're on the Chattahoochee River in Southwest Georgia. So we have wind that will blow across the river from Alabama into our area, or north from Northwest Florida into our area. And there are some things that we have to pay attention to that, we don't necessarily have the ability to go after them directly, but we know that it's a cost that you have to pay for doing business. But I want to make sure that the two previous comments understood that we are not trying to water down any of the protections.
Okay. So I wonder if there'd be just a simple one-line addition, or just some comment that may be incorporated. I mean, we're kind of at the end of the process where the letter is either ready to go to EPA or not. Is there a simple, I mean, it sounds like most everybody is in favor or supports the bulk of the recommendations. Is there just one comment or something that we could maybe add that would satisfy everyone in supporting the letter going forward?
So I'll raise my hand again. I'm raising my hand again.
We see you. Go ahead.
So I'm wondering, under where it says, for example, because of this kind of pollution, has requested that EPA exempt it when considering the stringency of air quality standards. And then have another sentence that says, we do want to recognize, though, that air quality is an important issue, and where we can, it needs to be carefully implemented, or something to that nature. Okay. Just like one sentence right there. Right. Because that line almost sounds like, we're kind of in favor of exemption, and I'm personally not. I mean, I may be for those unavoidable burns to reduce wildfires. That makes sense, but I do think another sentence there needs to say something about the overall requirements are important for most of the time.
So basically, his statement's just saying that we do support the management and the air quality piece. We're not trying to reduce that.
Exactly.
Part of it. Okay. I think we can incorporate that. If that's okay with everyone, could I get a motion to support this letter going forward?
Excuse me, Mr. Fulton, it's Mayor Aponte.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you get over your computer, but I raised my hand. I would like to make a recommendation for the local office of EPA here in Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico, we have a very high rate of asthma and respiratory system chronic diseases. This should be looked in terms of anything that could be causing that. I suggest, I would strongly suggest to the EPA local office in Puerto Rico to start a program of monitoring air quality in different local government with the different local governments support in order to see what is really causing that. But I think that we have been monitoring other contamination like a beach contamination program that it's very successful. But I would strongly suggest that the local EPA office should start making some monitoring of air quality in some urban areas of the highest cities on Puerto Rico.
Okay. I think we can put that as a note and follow up on that. You know, this recommendation letter is related to the National Program Guidance plan that EPA has. So I'm not sure that's the exact place for that comment. I don't want to lose it. I think it's very important and sounds like a very important issue to you there. But I don't know that goes into this document today. I do think it's important and we need to make a note of that. Victoria, can you make sure we note that and follow through with something on that?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And Mayor Aponte, yeah, we can, if we need, if it helps to make, you probably have contacts already with the local office there, but I will follow up for sure, make a note, definitely.
Thank you so much.
We also have
You're welcome.
Sorry. We also have a raised hand from Carvel Lewis.
Go ahead, Ms. Lewis.
I've already spoken. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, are there any other questions or comments? I don't want to leave anyone out. Victoria, can we take a motion on this and just with the one caveat that we add a sentence or a comment about the striving to better air quality in there?
Yes, I can make a note of that and insert something to that, a comment to that effect to present later today to the LGAC. That's no problem.
This is Joan Lee. I just would like to one comment. I appreciate the mentioning in there of, you know, dealing with cross-jurisdictional items, because for Minnesota last year, you know, our air quality really took a dive when we had the fires up in Canada. And, you know, it was something that definitely affected us, but, you know, we had no control over, you know, how they happened and those type of things. So I definitely appreciate the cross-jurisdictional mention in there.
Well, thank you for that. We experienced some things like that here too. So I think that comment or that part of the recommendation is right on track. Anyone else? Can I get someone to make a motion to support this letter going forward with the one caveat that we discussed?
I just put a comment in the box for everybody.
Did someone make a motion?
What are the voting rules? Who can vote on the different letters?
Needs to be a member of SCAS.
This is Ann Malik. I move we adopt the letter as amended.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second, Carvel Lewis.
Very good. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, I believe the ayes have it. Thank you for that. Let's see, the next letter that we have is also, this one is actually from the Revitalizing Communities Work Group. And it's a little more lengthy.
How did that program look when you printed it out?
The letter is on community-based environmentalism. And the charge that we had was to offer input and feedback to the EPA
left out
on the following questions. Can you mute your lines, please, if you're not speaking to the group? Thank you. And I'll read the questions. This is about community-based environmentalism. What actions would you recommend as the most effective means for the federal government, EPA, to build upon established programs, strategies in support of community-based efforts to improve local environmental outcomes? Second question, what current tools and resources do your communities utilize to determine environmental problems? Third, where and how has EPA succeeded and failed to create partnerships that result in measurable benefits? 4, what are the barriers, challenges to achieving measurable environmental improvement in your communities? 5, what are the barriers to receiving or leveraging federal resources for community revitalization? 6, what are the best tools, for example, information, technical assistance, and funding to meaningfully improve environmental outcomes in communities? And finally, how have your communities achieved or failed to achieve environmental progress after having received technical or planning assistance from EPA? So those are the questions, and there are quite a lot of recommendations there, and you can read through those, but just on the last page of the letter, it kind of summarized those, and I'll read the list. Basically, it says more funding, accessible and effective technical support, streamlined EPA resources, transparency and available funds, help applying for grants and less red tape, which I think that's applies a lot to small communities, help focus on partnership and less on enforcement, special consideration for small communities and border states, technical resources to assist with environmental compliance and improve notice of the availability of assistance, especially for small and medium-sized cities, provide a clearinghouse to learn about grants, technical assistance programs, informational resources and training, streamline processes and decentralized channels for accessing EPA resources, and working with state and regional organizations to disseminate information, more ways to reach EPA directly, working with community-based organizations to solve local environmental problems, and one size does not fit all. So there's quite a few recommendations there, and they're outlined, you know, in paragraph or in sentence format in there. I think there's 13 or so recommendations. So having said that, I'll take any questions or comments on this letter related to community-based environmentalism. It seems like a lot there. I know in Mississippi, it's not that often that small communities are directly interacting with EPA. A lot of times in our state that, you know, it's handled through the State Department of Environmental Quality. And so there's really not that relationship directly between EPA and the small community. And they really don't know the players. So it seems like to me that there should be some programs that are pushed down to the states that where the states have some responsibility to reach out and talk to the small communities. Most of the time, the states know what the environmental issues are within those communities and have the relationships there to actually, communicate the potential funding sources, grant programs, and that kind of thing that's out there. So I think that part of the recommendation, at least in where I'm at, makes a lot of sense to me. So anyone else have any comments or questions?
We have to raise hands. Ann Malik.
Thank you. I see lots of really wonderful points here, especially number 2 regarding the hammer, because I think many local governments feel they are reluctant to stick their neck out because they know that something worse is going to come. So yeah. I really like the tenor of this one and all the different points, and I support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next raised hand is Jose Aponte.
Yes, I'm agree with every point discussed here, and the recommendations that the committee is making to the EPA. I will recommend that on the summary where it says working with states and regional organization to disseminate information, which is very important, the communication and the dissemination of information, that we include the local governments. Local governments are the first line surgeon in terms of the information dissemination. So I would strongly recommend that include local governments in order to working with to dissemination of the information.
Very good. I think that's.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Anyone else?
You have Lisa Lone.
That's Lisa Lone Fight, but thank you.
Sorry.
Yes, that's all right. I put this in the general comment box. I'm not sure how you all will be, if you'll be harvesting those comments and then considering them for the letter. So I just wanted to say that one of the areas that we've had really positive feedback in with LGAC was including the part where you say tribal communities, because it's really easy to overlook some of our indigenous communities. Unless it says tribal community, it's not assumed that that's a part of it. And that sort of is a reminder that to look to those other communities in the area. So if that can be added, that would be I think that would be positive. Thank you.
And the next person we have is Commissioner.
Victoria Reinhardt, is that who you're?
Yes, I'm sorry. I couldn't see the rest of the name. Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm chair of the Revitalizing Communities Work Group. And I just wanted to note that if you look through the recommendations, that in virtually every number here, that it refers to local governments, and because that is what we are all about. And I would have, if there's someplace specifically we want to call out tribal governments. I know we have one in the next, the food one, but that's very reasonable and something that I wish I had recognized earlier. So Victoria Ludwig could, if there's a specific place to add tribal governments in different parts of this, please just let her know and they can incorporate that. And if anybody has any other questions for me on it, I'm here.
Yes, I can certainly do that. Yeah.
Are there any other questions or anyone with their hand up at this time?
I don't see any more.
Okay. Victoria, I want to commend your group for doing good work on this. I think it's really hits all the right points, and thank you for that. And if there are no more questions, could I get someone to make a motion to move this forward and recommend approval of this to the LGAC?
So moved. Carville, Lewis, Georgetown, Quitman County.
Second, Ann Malik, Albemarle County.
Very good, thank you. Are there any questions or comments? If hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Very good, ayes have it. Thank you very much. All right, moving on. The next letter here also came out of the Revitalizing Community Work Group, and it is a letter on sustainable management of food, which is a pretty cool topic, I think. And the questions that or the charge that was put to us includes the following questions, and I'll read those once again. Starting with the first one, it says, how can states or local governments build networks to withstand food system disruptions, such as those experienced with COVID-19, and build future resilience? Secondly, what are the effects of policies, bans to reduce food and organics from landfills? What is working? How are you measuring results? 3, how can states, local governments efficiently share best practices to reduce food loss and waste? 4, what are current effective interventions states, local governments are using to reduce food waste? 5, what are the research needs of states and local governments to reduce food waste? And 6, if funds, resources were not an issue, what efforts would local governments want to implement to reduce food waste? And once again, there's several pages worth of good discussion and examples. I think seven examples of these type programs that are going on in the U.S. And then a list of recommendations, about 10 recommendations, but just a summary of those recommendations, which I'll read here, are as follows. To develop toolkits, develop curricula for tribal colleges as it relates to food waste, regulatory credits, cost benefit and analytical tools, support pilot projects for food waste disposal bans, and grants for feasibility studies and waste audits, which I think is a good one. Networking opportunities to help learn more about these programs that are out there and potential programs, resources specifically targeted at rural areas, and guidance and financial support for food banks. So those were the summary of the recommendations. And like I said, there's a lot of text and information in the letter that supports those recommendations. So having said that, I'll open it back up to the floor and take any comments or questions that you may have. Go ahead, Ann.
This idea may already be included, and someone on the committee may already know this, but what has occurred to me is that there could be tax changes which would change the way both grocery stores and restaurants deal with their excess food by not having it just be something they deduct. But if there's a benefit to them financially to make sure that it gets to somebody who needs it, that is a way almost to speed it happening even quicker than a lot of chasing around trying to link up food banks, et cetera, with our local grocery stores. So if it shouldn't be just up to the goodwill of Whole Foods or Kroger or somebody to donate their things that they have according to the dates, et cetera. But a little stick along with the carrot might help. Thank you.
Someone else had their hand up. Ms. Cynthia?
So just a couple things. I totally agree with the curricula for tribal colleges, but I'm assuming you will add something there that it relates to food waste, because that doesn't make sense, just that little phrase. But secondly, I'm wondering, following up on, whether we should identify restaurants as well as being able to deal with food waste and giving programs to those that need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's spelled out pretty good in the body of the letter about the curriculum to be developed.
Okay, thank you.
But not sure about the restaurants. Victoria, are you still on the line? Could you address any of this?
Yes. First of all, with the curricula, yes, in the full description, it's very clear that it's about food management and why. I am wondering if under the first recommendation that the EPA consider ways to incentivize sustainable food management through mechanisms, and we have such as allowing local governments to receive credit for meeting federal regulations. I'm wondering if we want to include the business sector or restaurants in that as well. And it's just a such as, so it's not like it couldn't be. I mean, if we wanted to leave it the way it is, it just does say that it recommends the EPA consider ways to incentivize sustainable food management. But if we want to call out the restaurants or food preparing organizations, I don't know that it's just restaurants, but we could do that there. But it is covered in a way, and in another way, we could make it more defined if we would choose to do so.
Do you have any thoughts on the comment about taxes or as it relates to the food banks? This first comment, I believe it was Ms. Ann.
6.
Number 6, okay, sorry. Actually, I don't have any additional comments. I don't remember, was there a potential addition or more clarification that was needed there? If you could help me out with that, I'd appreciate it.
Who made that comment? Was it Ann? The very first comment that we had on this section.
I was only asking that the committee might have already talked about the financial lever that could be used. And I think the suggestion that's already been made would be perfectly adequate.
Okay. Thank you. So what's the will of our committee, SCAS? Do we want to recommend this letter going forward as is, or do we want to put in some language about restaurants or food preparing organizations as it related to the item discussed?
Mr. Chair, could I suggest that maybe in the first recommendation, the LGAC recommends that EPA consider ways to incentivize sustainable food management for local governments and the hospitality industry through mechanisms such as.
I like that.
I second that. Thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion?
And then it continues to read.
To Excellent. Push the letter forward with that one change?
It's Mayor Aponte from Carolina. I believe that this is a new approach in EPA, the food waste management. And we are right now we started running a couple of months ago a pilot project for waste disposal bank. And I would suggest that it will be very helpful for us and for any other local government. I strongly support all of this ideas that other mates have been taking right now. but I would think that we will need some funding for educational campaigns, because this is a new approach in EPA. Thank you.
Victoria, is that spelled out in the letter? The funding for educational campaigns? I thought there was something on that.
Yeah, I actually just turned to it. I'm trying to edit the document in live time. Number 10, it mentions the importance of helping communities develop their education programs. It doesn't mention funding, but it says many communities do not have the luxury of developing public education campaigns on food waste management. Therefore, support from the EPA as far as templates, templates for documents, I think the group meant best practices, shareable graphics, et cetera, would be valuable.
Is it too big of an issue to add the funding piece of that in there?
For me, no, not at all.
Victoria, are you?
Thank you so much.
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
That's certainly part of helping.
Right.
is funding.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and try to move this forward. We're running short on time here. I just looked down and saw where we are on time. So if everyone's okay with it, can I get a motion to move this forward to LGAC?
I move the letter as amended.
I'll second that.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor DeSantos. All right, without any further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. And our last letter here, this comes from the water work group. The SCAS actually participated in this pretty consistently, and so may not need very much addition to it, but basically this is a letter on proposed 2020 financial capability assessment for the Clean Water Act. And we were asked to, the water work group was asked to make comments on the financial capability assessment program that EPA, the guidance that they've adopted or are about to adopt, and it deals with how the ability for customers or communities to be able to pay for capital expenditures that are required to clear up a water environmental issue. And it includes some new metrics there to inform a community's implementation schedule, how long they take to implement the improvements, and includes indicators that more accurately reflect how much low-income communities can afford to pay for water infrastructure upgrades. So the recommendation for number one, the LGAC commends the EPA for doing this, for updating the guidance. It's been more than 20 years since it's been updated. The LGA supports the inclusion of the new metrics in the guidance, as well as more accurate indicators. Also, the LGAC also recommends that the EPA provide specific examples and scenarios in the guidance to avoid confusion, specifically related to how proposed changes might impact burden designations and scheduling and implementation timelines. So just put some real examples in there, specific examples of how that would be done and looked at. And then also including the inclusion of scheduling considerations, prioritizing projects based on environmental justice, economic disadvantage, discharges to sensitive areas, use impairment, and public health to balance against the proposed guidelines, updating scheduling recommendations. So to include those other considerations in the guidance. So that is it. It's a real simple letter, 1.5 pages long. And so any questions or discussion about this? Can I get a motion to push this to the LGAC for recommendation?
I move the letter.
I second it, Cynthia Pratt.
Who made the motion?
Mayor Aponte.
Thank you, Mayor Aponte. Okay, without any further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. The motion carries on that one. Let's see where we're at here. Victoria, how much time do we have left?
None, but I think most of the people that are on, there's several LGAC members right now on the call who, in addition to SCAS. So I think if you need to, it's fine to continue wrapping up if you like.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try to wrap it up pretty quick here. I know we ran a little bit long. Once again, I want to thank everybody for participating today. Very important issues. Next year, we're looking at a number of different topics that we may discuss. And I think you've got a list of those. Be thinking about those and thinking about what are important for us to take up as a committee. And we'll get back together early next year and try to discuss those further and decide which way to go on that. One thing that we may try to do next year is take on our own charge. So far, we've been working with the other work groups and adding comments and critical input to their letters, but there may be an opportunity for us to take on a charge of our own next year. And so be thinking about that, and we'll try to discuss that further in our first meeting next year. And then I think that's about all I have there. Brett, are you still on the line? Would you like to give any closing remarks?
I am here. Thank you. I don't want to take up any more time, but just want to thank everyone again for your input today. I think that was really beneficial, and I know our offices here at EPA and the regions look forward to reviewing all of your recommendations. So thank you. And I look forward to your charge next year. I think that's a great idea.
Very good. Thank you. And just so you know, the letters that we deliberated on today, they will be discussed as we report out later on in the LGAC meeting, in hopes that those letters would be able to move forward with the minor comments and be finalized and sent to the EPA administrator. And once again, thanks everybody for participating. And I think we're out of time. We are adjourned.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
I don't know if we have time for a break. What do y'all think?
You want to take a 5-minute break? This is Kitty.
Yeah.
Get up.
That's a great idea, Commissioner.
And
okay.
we'll resume at, what time is it now? 3:30.
3:30.
Let's go till 3:40 and resume. Thank you.
For those of you that are staying
you.
on, simply mute your lines and turn your video off if you'd like.
Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Got back on it and they went to break before they do the full committee. You're gonna feed
Can everyone gather back online? Well, this is Kitty Barnes. I'm chairman of the Local Government Advisory Committee for EPA, and I welcome all committee members and EPA staff and others that are with us today. We are starting just about 10 minutes later than we had anticipated, but we had a very good SCAS meeting, and I'm glad that they were able to have all the discussion and deliberation that they had. At this time, I'm going to call on our technical support for this meeting to give us some housekeeping measures.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Kurt Ali, and some of the things I'm going to cover for those who were not on the earlier meeting would be how to mute your phones and the raise hand feature. At the very bottom of your screen,
I am calling from Sanford Hill.
At the very bottom of your screen, if you hover at the very bottom there, you'll see participants. Once you click on that, the pop-up window with the participants show up to the right of your screen. And from there, you are at the very bottom of that white screen, you can do the raise hand feature. The mute button is also there. So if you click on that to mute your line so that we do not get any background noise, we would appreciate that. And that's also the area where if you click next to your name on the right hand side, there's the more feature, and you can add your name or change your name as you would like it to be on the participants list. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is our first full public meeting since May. And certainly in the interim, we've been very busy with the 3 work groups meeting. And we have been discussing a variety of environmental issues that are relevant to all of us in local government. After deliberating on multiple charges and draft issues, we have some recommendations to the EPA, including input from the Small Communities Advisory Subcommittee. And today we will be reviewing 4 draft letters of recommendation that all members will deliberate on today, and we will take a vote. We are also honored today to have the EPA Administrator, Andrew Wheeler, speak to us. Unfortunately, he couldn't be with us in person, but he has provided a video, and we'll be viewing that in a few seconds. Toward the end of the meeting, we will be discussing our priorities for 2021, and I really look forward to that. And I want you to know we will take another short break somewhere around 4:15. And at this time, I'd like to introduce our Vice Chair, Secretary Jeff Whitty, out there in New Mexico. Jeff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, what a great afternoon it's going to be. The SCAS, the Small Communities Advisory Council, just had a great discussion on a number of letters that we're going to be considering here later this afternoon for the full LGAC. But there's been a lot of work going on at the committee level, and we look forward to hearing the reports from the committees and all of the input from everybody as we go forward. So I want to thank everybody for your participation in the LGAC. To me, this is one of the most important things that we can do is give the good, sound advice to the administrator and the staff at EPA from our local governments. So thank you for participating, and look forward to a great afternoon.
Thank you very much. And at this time, I'm pleased to turn it over to the Honorable Andrew H. Wheeler, Administrator of the EPA, and for his video message.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnes. I'm queuing it up now, and then I will share my screen. Oop, he started talking without me. Here we go, folks. This is about 7 minutes long. And let me know that you can see it.
Good.
Okay, great. Let me start over. And can you hear it?
No.
Small Communities Advisory Subcommittee
Uh-oh.
has this opportunity. Let me extend.
Sorry about that. I don't know why that is.
Victoria, we were starting to hear it. If you could just, put it at the beginning and maybe turn up your volume, I think we've got it.
Okay, great.
I think there was just a little lag here loading.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let me know if it stops sounding.
Maybe turn it up. We lost the sound again.
Because one of the tech people, remember to enable computer video. Could you just, Kurt, remind me where to do that? It's in the Zoom, right?
Gloria, this is
Yes.
Jeff. Can I do it from the link that he was sent?
I couldn't hear you.
Victoria, can Kurt load the video with the link that you forwarded him?
It's on. Is it on the website by now?
Yes.
Kurt or Will, if you could go to the LGAC website. I will.
Victoria, let me forward them an email with the link. Maybe we should go to introductions first and come back to the.
Yes. Let's resolve those issues and move on to the roll call. And you've already heard from Victoria Ludwig, who is the DFO, our designated federal officer, and appreciate all the work that she has done in helping get this meeting put together. I'm going to ask that she's going to call roll and want you to introduce yourself and give a little background. And while you're speaking, please turn on your video so we can put names and faces together, since we haven't had the advantage of meeting in person. So I'll turn it over to you, Victoria.
Thank you. And I may have figured out how to enable the computer sound for the video. Let me open my roll call. We're going to go in alphabetical order. So starting right out, that would be you, Mayor Jose Aponte.
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Oh, do you want to tell people where you're from?
Well, my name is Mayor Jose Aponte. I'm from Carolina, Puerto Rico.
Thank you. Is Rodney Bartlett on the line? Town Administrator Rodney Bartlett. Okay. How about Secretary Gary Black? Commissioner, sorry. Okay. Supervisor Bracker?
Good afternoon. I'm Bruce Bracker. I'm Santa Cruz County, Arizona Supervisor.
Thank you. Jeff Brannick. Next up is Melissa Cribbins.
Hi, I'm Melissa Cribbins. I'm a county commissioner from Coos County, Oregon, which is on the southern Oregon coast.
Great. Mayor Vincent DeSantis. Okay. Chairman Mark Fox.
My name is Lisa Lonefite, and I'm Chairman Mark Fox's Science Advisor, and he is the chairman for the 3 affiliated tribes, the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Rikwa, located in North Dakota. Thank you.
Thank you. Administrator Brian Fulton.
Yes, I'm here, Brian Fulton. I'm the county administrator for Jackson County, Mississippi, which is here on the coast of Mississippi, and I'm currently the chairman of the SCAS committee as well.
Thank you. Eric Genrich. Okay. Evan Paul Hansen.
Hi, my name is Evan Hansen, and I am a delegate in the West Virginia House of Delegates, and I represent Morgantown, West Virginia, and the surrounding area.
Great, welcome. Is Mayor Ella Jones with us? I think she may have had to switch to her audio format. Joan Lee is next.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Joan Lee, Polk County, Minnesota, located up in the northwestern part of the state.
Thank you. Susan Lessard. Chairman Carvel Lewis.
Good afternoon. This is Carvel Lewis. I'm chairman of the Board of Commissioners for the Unified Government of Georgetown, Quitman County. Quitman County is in southwest Georgia. We border the state of Alabama, and we're Georgia's second smallest county. Greatest place to live.
I will have to visit someday then. Is Gabrielle Lopez with us? Ryan Mckenzie? Okay. Ann Malik?
Good afternoon. A supervisor representing the Whitehall District in Albemarle County. We're about 100 miles south of DC in Central Virginia.
Great. Bill McMurray?
I am present, Mayor of St. Joseph, Missouri, and we are in the northwest part of the state on the Missouri River, and we can look across the river and see the state of Kansas.
That's great. How about Steve Miller? Okay, Ron Poltak, excuse me.
Good afternoon. I'm Ron Poltak. I live in Auburn, New Hampshire. I'm currently in my 3rd year on the committee. My career is related to implementation of the Clean Water Act and the Safe Drinking Water Act. As the Executive Director of the New England Interstate Water Pollution Control Commission. And I enjoy very much committing myself to the purposes of this group. So thank you, everybody.
Welcome. Cynthia Pratt. Carmen Ramirez.
Good afternoon. I've been on Oxnard City Council as Mayor Pro Tem for almost 10 years, and I've just won an election to Ventura County Board of Supervisors. I represent Oxnard, the greater Oxnard area, which is an environmental justice community on the beautiful California coast. We also have a Superfund site, so very, very interested in cleaning things up. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Victoria Reinhardt.
Thank you. I'm Victoria Reinhardt. I'm a commissioner in Ramsey County, Minnesota. Ramsey County, half the county is the city of St. Paul, which is the capital of Minnesota.
Great. Secretary Michael Skews.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael Skews, the Delaware Secretary of Agriculture and Chairman of the Water Working Group.
Great. Next up is Mayor Matt Surnsey.
Afternoon, Mayor Matt Surnsey, Hawthorne, Florida, Vice Chair of the Water Work Group. Right now it's a balmy 76 degrees here in Florida, and we actually had to put on socks this morning. It was so cold.
76, rub it in. Commissioner Libby Szabo. Thank you, Mayor. I think Commissioner Szabo was not able to make it today. How about Mayor Paul Tenhaken?
Hey everyone, Mayor Paul Tenhaken in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Sorry about that pronunciation. Thank you.
No problem.
Eric Thompson. And last is Sean Yanity. Is there anyone else I missed?
Secretary Woody.
Oh yes, we have to officially, Secretary Jeff Whitty. Are you present?
Yeah, I'm still here. Thank you.
Did anyone else come on late? Speak up now after the roll call. Okay.
Thank
can we? Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. All done. I mean, Commissioner Barnes. Sorry.
I was making sure we had a quorum. Also, I would like to recognize some of the EPA staff that's with us, and I'm going to call on Britt Carter first. Britt? I think Britt must have stepped away.
I'm here. I'm so sorry. I was making sure our Office of Policy knew we were running a little behind. But yes, thank you so much. This is just a wonderful gathering of folks. It's very exciting to see the full committee here meeting. I know we haven't met since May, and we just had a really great meeting with our SCAS committee, and they gave us some great input from the community and rural local community level. So they'll bring that up later when we bring up our discussions on our letters of recommendations that you have for the EPA. And I'm looking forward to hearing that input. And without further ado, I would love to introduce Joe Brzauskas, our Associate Administrator of our Office of Congressional and Intergovernmental Relations. I think he'd like to say a few words too.
And good afternoon, everyone. I'm really happy to be here and have the chance to address the LGAC and SCAS at your last meeting of 2020. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for your time and your expertise. The administrator and entire EPA senior leadership team value your input and advice. As Britt said, I'm the Associate Administrator of the Office of Congressional and Intergovernmental Relations, and we have the honor of working most directly with the LGAC and SCAS on behalf of the agency and the administrator. During my time at EPA, I've really enjoyed following the committee and subcommittee and hearing your feedback on the various issues we have put in front of you. It is important to the agency to hear your perspective as elected and appointed officials of local governments, states, and tribal governments. Learning about your on-the-ground experiences and hearing that perspective is vital for assisting EPA to better protect the environment and public health. It's important for those of us in the federal government to be able to touch base with our state, local, and tribal partners and ask, how are we doing? What can we improve on? What is working well? LGAC serves that purpose. And even better, we can talk with members of SCAS about the unique circumstances that small and rural communities face. So I'm looking forward to reading your recommendations on the issues before you today once finalized. Again, welcome and thanks for having me. I know all of us appreciate your participation in the LGAC and the SCAS and the valuable time you devote to it, especially during this challenging time of the pandemic. Good luck with your deliberations today, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you for taking time to speak with us. We really appreciate that. And now we'll, I do want to recognize two others with the EPA. Jack Bowles, you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody. Jack Bowles, Director of State Local Relations at EPA. It's a great pleasure and honor to be with all of you today. Thank you for taking your valuable time to be with us. I know that you have a lot going on in your communities, and we really, really appreciate you working to make EPA's environmental programs work better for local governments. Thanks.
Thank you, Jack. And I think I saw Wayne Hurd was also on here. Wayne? There he is.
Yes. Hi, everybody. It's been great working with you all thus far in the work groups. Thank you for your time, your deliberations thus far today.
Thank you. And moving on through our agenda, I'm going to introduce Brittany Boland, who is the Associate Administrator in the Office of Policy.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, Commissioner Barnes, I think we have the video ready to go.
Oh, let's back up and we'll do that.
Sorry about that. I think Curd and or Will figured out how to do it. If not, I might have also figured out how to do my computer audio.
There we got the picture.
Oh, good. Can everybody see it? Great. Okay.
And
so we can. Thank you so much. We'll play the video.
Advisory Committee, LGAC, and the Small Communities Advisory Subcommittee, SCAS, for this opportunity to meet with you today. Let me extend my thanks to all of you who have volunteered your time to help strengthen EPA partnerships with state, local, and tribal governments. A lot has happened since the last time we spoke back in May. EPA has faced the challenges related to the coronavirus pandemic, both as an institution made up of people and as an environmental regulator with fortitude and transparency. In March, the pesticide program developed its list of surface disinfectants for use against the coronavirus. This list now has over 400 products that meet EPA's criteria for use. In July, EPA sped up the processing of applications to add directions for the use of electrostatic sprayers to products intended to kill the coronavirus. And in August, EPA issued an emergency exemption to the state of Texas to allow American Airlines to use the product SurfaceWise 2 as a surface coating that inactivates viruses within 2 hours of application and continues to work against them for up to 7 days. EPA also celebrated its 50th anniversary this month, hosting a virtual event on December 2nd with the former EPA administrators. We unveiled the new Ruckelshaus Conference Center here at EPA headquarters in honor of EPA's first administrator, William Ruckelshaus. This event included tributes by the 7 remaining charter employees who have been working at EPA for the entire 50-year period. This event was a great opportunity to to showcase all the great work the agency has done and also what we can focus on going forward. As many of you know, all measurements of pollution in this country are far lower now than they were 50 years ago. Air pollution has fallen 77% since 1970, while water quality has improved dramatically, and toxic pollution has been contained to a degree not thought possible 50 years ago. All of these improvements could only happen through the close and continuous working relationships we've had with state and local governments. Since the last time we met, LGAC has helped EPA improve the regulation of America's air, land, and water in many ways. The Office of Air and Radiation requested LGAC's early input for the Air Office's 2022 to 2023 National Program Guidances. Members provided feedback on activities that EPA should consider, including options to solve cross-jurisdictional air pollution that originates in neighboring states and countries, such as Mexico, asking that natural background air pollution be factored into air attainment determinations, such as desert dust and coastal bayous, targeting activities that cause air pollution occurring outside the control of local governments, such as prescribed burns conducted in national and state forests. The Office of Water and the Office of Enforcement asked for the committee's input on the proposed 2020 Financial Capability Assessment for the Clean Water Act. The offices wanted a local government perspective. Committee members responded by saying they were concerned that proposed metrics would negatively undermine implementation schedules. For some locations, this could result in hardships in terms of getting much needed infrastructure in place. Members said they supported projects that prioritize environmental justice, low-income communities, discharges to sensitive areas, use impairments, and public health. The Office of Land and Emergency Management asked for LGAC's input on how local communities could properly manage food waste. Members offered several examples of successful programs, including commercial cooking oil converted to biofuel, food waste used by local farms, and casino food waste donated to needy populations. Members recommended that EPA provide the following resources and tools: toolkits, college curriculum, grants for feasibility studies, networking opportunities, resources specifically targeted at rural areas, and guidance and financial support for food banks. As part of my commitment to improving our support to communities, EPA is now creating a one-stop shop to make it easier for communities to access available funding and other agency resources. We're doing this by expanding our Water Finance Clearinghouse, which was launched in 2017. This will now be turned into 3 separate clearinghouses for air, water, and land, and renamed the Clearinghouse for Environmental Finance. Each clearinghouse includes data on funding and financing sources for environmental projects, as well as financial research such as case studies, white papers, and webinars. All resources must be available free to the public for inclusion into the clearinghouses. The Office of Policy asked for recommendations from LGAC on 7 questions that would inform EPA's approach to community-based environmentalism. Several members provided thoughtful and detailed answers. The common themes were funding, funding, and more funding, special consideration for small communities and border states, technical resources to assist with environmental compliance, a clearinghouse to learn about grants, which is something we're already working on, technical help when applying for grants and less red tape, more focus on partnering to find solutions and direct compliance assistance rather than on enforcement, and working with community-based organizations as local governments cannot always make change happen. It's my hope that as we look forward to the next 50 years of the agency, we don't forget how far we have come environmentally. The evidence is everywhere. When we look at our measured environmental indicators, since 2017, EPA has redesignated more than 50 non-attainment areas across the country to attainment status. Reclassifying areas from non-attainment to attainment not only helps the environment in those communities, but it helps the communities economically, because a non-attainment classification can prevent businesses from getting needed permits. In the 1960s, more than 40% of our country's drinking water systems failed to meet even the most basic health standards. Today, over 92% of community water systems meet all health-based standards 24 hours a day, every day. Our air, land, and water are much cleaner thanks in large part to EPA's state and local partners. So I want to thank you again for your time and good luck with your deliberations.
Well, I think that video certainly captured a lot of what we've been talking about and some of the suggestions. So I'm pleased to have seen that. That's excellent. And for those at EPA, if you have an opportunity to see the administrator, please give him our thanks for his recognition and paying attention to us. Thumbs up. And now we will move to Brittany Boland, who is the Associate Administrator in the Office of Policy, to speak about EPA's plans to develop a holistic, community-based approach to achieve greater environmental progress for communities in need. So Brittany, would you please take it away?
Sure. Hi. Okay, can you see me? Okay, great. Good. Thank you, Commissioner Barnes, for that introduction. And thank you, members of the Local Government Advisory Committee, as well as those with the Small Communities Advisory Subcommittee that are still on the call. I also want to thank my colleagues in the Office of Congressional and Intergovernmental Relations Affairs Office for inviting me today. This is an important committee. As the head of the Office of Policy, I know we work across the EPA advisory committees seeking their advice and input on the work that we're doing. And certainly the LGAC plays an important role and is one of those very, very important advisory committees. And so I'm pleased to join you today. I believe this is not a committee that I've been able to personally address and interact with. And so I'm pleased to join you virtually. I'm trusting and hoping that you and all your loved ones and colleagues are well. And I want to thank you for your service on this committee. As you just heard from the administrator's address, certainly he has made it a priority to develop a community-based environmentalism approach to the way that we operate at EPA and the way that we are trying to solve problems for communities in need. To implement that plan, he has asked the Office of Policy to lead those efforts. Many of you know the Office of Policy is the primary policy arm of the agency, and we've got a couple of unique offices that offer some innovative and collaborative to support to communities, such as our Office of Environmental Justice. We've got an Office of Community Revitalization that I know has worked with your team and has briefed you all in the past. We've got a climate adaptation portfolio that I know has also briefed and worked with all of you. And we also have a smart sectors program that looks to partner with regulated entities and trying to solve environmental challenges through, again, those partnerships and some non-traditional regulatory means. And so through all those mechanisms, the Office of Policy was the appropriate office to take the lead in implementing this work. And we're pleased with the engagement that we've been able to have with the LGAC so far. And I want to thank you for your attention and participation. But as the administrator said, when we're talking about this community-based approach, it's important to put it into context. And so as he mentioned, we just celebrated our 50th anniversary at EPA just 1 week ago today. And over the course of those 50 years, as you heard in his address, he provided a number of statistics that you all may be familiar with across our criteria air pollutants and our water systems, the cleanups we've been able to have in the Superfund program. Certainly, just overall, our environment and our public health is cleaner and healthier today than it was 50 years ago. And we've made tremendous progress. However, at the same time, we know that success in all these areas is not felt by all. And there still continue to be many communities that still face a number of environmental challenges. And it's important that we not forget those communities and that we cannot leave them behind. So that is why this is all the more important of an initiative. Because certainly the agency, as we are continuing to implement our statutory programs, our required regulatory programs, our authorized grant and funding programs and technical assistance, we continue to do all of this. And yet these challenges remain for so many communities. And in some respects they exist because our regulatory programs are too rigid, right? They may be designed to address a single media issue. Whether a particular air exposure pathway or a water contamination issue, and while our regulations are very well designed and can address those single track issues, they may have unintended consequences and may result in other challenges that are left behind. Certainly there are trade-offs to a lot of these choices. And so it's important that as we're making these regulatory decisions, we're not doing that in a vacuum. It is important, as the administrator has said, that we break down those silos, that we're working across our programs, and that we're ensuring that something the Air Office is doing doesn't have these negative impacts on, say, water quality or the soil cleanups that we're doing, that we're making sure those efforts are most impactful and being mindful of again, air considerations. And so we need to make sure that we're breaking down those silos, improving that communication as we're doing these regulatory development. But as we're doing our regulatory development, we do have to be mindful that in some respects, these rules, while very well intentioned and aligned with our statutory functions, sometimes may lead to unintended economic impacts that can also have a harm on a community. It could attack, an economic base that's important to revitalization and important to environmental and public health progress. And again, can have other unintended consequences of offsetting environmental harms to another area, whether domestically or internationally. So again, these decisions cannot be made in a vacuum. It's important that we're doing so with our eyes wide open and clear communication across our programs at EPA. And so we do need to be careful and ensure that what we are doing to help communities are truly there to help them, and that we're doing so, again, fully mindful of how can we best serve these communities across these environmental media challenges. Outside of our regulatory authorities, you all know, as I mentioned, we've got funding and we have technical assistance programs that do provide really meaningful results. As I mentioned earlier, a couple of the offices just in my shop, such as our environmental justice program, again, through we have small grants, we have collaborative problem solving grants. This year we brought back a state environmental justice cooperative agreement program that was designed to help address issues related to COVID-19 for some communities. And these are all very, very useful and have meaningful results for communities. And I know that we have other technical assistance that we've been able to provide. And I do think these programs help. In some respects on technical assistance, we're able to address multiple media issues. Indeed, we have, the brownfields program that provides environmental job training to create a skilled workforce in communities where there's brownfield assessments and cleanup activities are taking place. And indeed, of course, the brownfields grants really do help put certain communities and properties back to productive use that also lead to tremendous environmental benefits. And so these are just some of the programs I know that many of you are already familiar with. But in a lot of respects, they are segmented into specific programs at EPA. And so this is why the administrator put us to task to say, how are we helping communities identify all of these great resources we have that are available to them? One of the concerns that he had shared was that, certainly small communities in particular may not have the resources available to them to apply for these opportunities or to even know if they're available. Or to even know what opportunity may be best suited to address their needs. And so this is why he charged us with this one-stop shop idea that he wanted to establish. And this is what we're taking this first step, and actually just today, and what we've been able to do and create the wheel. We were able to take something that's been effective, that we've received positive feedback on, that the Water Office has already maintained for a while now on the Water Finance Clearinghouse. And this is a database that's online, and it provides all funding resources, both federal, philanthropic. It has white papers and other resources that are available in the water infrastructure context. And again, that's been helpful and very useful. And what we're doing today is we are beginning the stages of broadening that beyond just the water, beyond the water space. And we are now expanding that to include funding and technical assistance opportunities in the air program, as well as our land programs. And so we're very pleased with this. Again, it's a modest first step, but it's one that we were able to get done quickly, and it's one that we are launching today. And with that, we are renaming this clearinghouse to the Clearinghouse for Environmental Finance. Again, as I mentioned, I think this is one way that we are helping to advance the administrator's vision for providing this one-stop shop for communities in need, for them to see the suite of tools and financing and opportunities that we have at our disposal here at EPA. But again, EPA cannot solve these problems alone. That is why it is important in partnership with so many of you and your communities, and certainly nonprofit and philanthropic organizations that also have other resources and skill sets to bring to the table. And so we will be building this out as time goes on. And we have other efforts underway as well, as we think about our grant application process and how to make that easier to navigate and easier to apply, so that communities don't need to hire consultants and get bogged down in the process of just trying to get the resources that they need to help their constituents. So these are some of the things that we're thinking of. And as I mentioned, we've made tremendous progress. We need to ensure that we're not just on autopilot doing the same thing year after year with the solicitation. This is a great inflection point, particularly aligning with the 50th, as we think about how to evolve into the agency of the future to address these long-standing systemic issues that we've had. Again, to ensure, as I mentioned at the beginning, that these communities that may otherwise, still face these challenges, that they can experience the same progress that we've seen across this great country over the last 50 years. And so with that, I do thank you for your time. I recognize that the input from state and local officials such as yourself, and all of you that are committing the time to public service and joining this committee and helping us, that it's really valuable experience. You are on the ground. We need to hear from you. We can't just, as I mentioned, in a vacuum or in theory, talk about these issues. We really need to hear from you directly. We need to help you. We need your help in shaping these policies and this program as we're, again, trying to address these issues. And certainly the experience and expertise and the diversity of the folks here and seeing all of you, and geographically as well, and the perspectives that you bring is very valuable, and I do think will help us as we're trying to get on the right track. So with that, I thank you for the time today. I thank you for meeting with my staff in September and October. And again, I'd just like to end with reciting the 7 questions that we had posed then. And I know that all of you have taken time to give initial feedback, and we're eager to see your more robust feedback on these questions. But again, just for discussion today, just to quickly, those questions were, what actions do you recommend as the most effective means for the federal government and EPA to build upon established programs and strategies in support of community-based efforts to improve local environmental outcomes? The second was, what current tools and resources do your communities utilize to determine environmental problems? 3, where and how has the EPA succeeded, and where have we failed to create partnerships that result in measurable environmental benefits? 4, what are some of the barriers and challenges to achieving measurable environmental improvement in your community? And 5, what are the barriers to receiving or leveraging federal resources for community revitalization? 6, what are the best tools, such as information or technical assistance or grants, to meaningfully improving environmental outcomes in your communities? And then last, how have your communities achieved or failed to achieve environmental progress after having received technical or planning assistance from the EPA? And that last one's very important because obviously we have a lot of funding mechanisms and technical assistance programs, and it's important to see how successful those have been. So those were our 7 questions. They're not perfect questions. I know there's many more questions, and I do welcome all your feedback. I thank you for accepting this important charge and for working with us to address these critical issues. As I mentioned at the beginning, we cannot achieve this on our own. Again, we've made tremendous progress the last 50 years, but challenges continue, particularly in these communities of need, and we need to make sure that we're doing the best we can to service them. So with that, Commissioner, I'd welcome if there's any feedback or reactions or questions. I don't know if there's much time. I can wait over a few more minutes, but thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Really, it was wonderful to hear that there will be a clearinghouse, a singular, that we can all get into. And I want to thank you for the information that you brought us today and the perspective for what to expect in the future. Breaking down silos is always a good thing. Right now, we're supposed to, at 4:25, be listening to public comments. So I'll have to ask that we hold our questions and try to contact you. I'm sure Victoria has your contact information as we move forward. But thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Please feel free, any feedback or questions, and certainly that which comes from the public comments. Thank you all for your time. Take care.
Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to recognize that we will take any public input. I don't believe, Victoria Ludwig, would you clarify that we did not have anyone registered for specific comment?
Yes, Commissioner Reinhardt, we have no one who has officially requested time.
But I do know that we did have some folks that did register for the meeting today. And I'd like to recognize them and ask that if anyone would like to introduce themselves and specifically if you are representing an organization, we'd like to hear from you this time. Don't think we're hearing from anyone. Is there anyone unregistered that would like to bring a comment before this committee?
And I don't see anyone in the chat or having raised their hands, just to let you know.
Thank you. Well, therefore, I'm going to declare a 10-minute break, and we'll resume at 4:40 for our business meeting.
Please remember to mute your lines and turn your video off if you would like to. Thank you.
Fellow members, I have 4:40 on my phone clock. And I'd like to bring us back together at this time. This is our business meeting, and I would like to begin with the report outs of items that and activities that have taken place since May from each of our work groups as well as SCAS. And I'm going to begin with the Small Communities Advisory Subcommittee. They met this afternoon and would like to recognize their chair, Administrator Brian Fulton. And if you would give a report in regards to what's gone on since May, as well as your deliberations this afternoon.
I sure will. Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I am Brian Fulton. I'm the County Administrator for Jackson County and serving as the Chairman for SCAS for the LGAC. And it's my pleasure to provide a report out from today's SCAD meeting earlier. And just to let you know, our committee has been very busy this year as our members have participated in numerous calls with the different work groups. And that the topics, the letters that we'll be talking about here in just a minute. And we worked real closely with the water work group on their charge this year. And let's see. So on our call earlier today, I'm happy to report that SCAS supported all of the letters from the work groups and pushing those forward to the EPA administrator with a few minor caveats in there. And I think Victoria has some of those teed up for us, and maybe we can kind of talk through a few of those real briefly and go from there. Victoria, can you do that for us?
Sure. I tried to make line edits. They're not perfect, but and there's one letter that there were no edits to. So I will start with the Office of Air letter, which
I think the main comment on that, if I remember correctly, was that they recommended that we put a statement in there or adjust one of the sentences to say that we support trying the goal of having good quality air. And I think that's implied, in all of it, but I think they wanted something a little stronger in there, and that's what you kind of see in the highlighted text there.
Yes, and we can certainly. I'm sorry. We can certainly. This is my first cut at this, but let me know if it captures the gist of it, please. Yeah.
I think it does. It just basically says the LGAC strongly supports clean air for all. We recognize the important role that the EPA has, and it cuts off there on my screen.
Oh, it says that the EPA has as a regulator in ensuring clean air for all.
Right. So that was the only comment or caveat as it relates to the letter.
Brian, this is Kitty. I'm going to just interject that at each of the work groups makes their reports, then we will take action on the letters themselves.
Okay, very good. Well, I just wanted to bring these to your attention at this time, and then you guys can we'll take action as a group. Were there any other things to that one, Victoria? Were there any? I think that was the only one that I remembered.
Yeah, it was just to kind of make that more strongly stated and put it right up front.
Okay. And the second letter was based on the community-based environmentalism. Do you have any comments to that one?
There was mention of including, one second.
I think a couple of the references they recommended talking or at least mentioning in their local government and tribal communities.
Yes, here is the summary page. I put a bullet at the top that says recognition of the unique characteristics and situations of tribal governments and development of programs and tools that are tailored specifically for tribes. And then in the summary recognition or recommendation, it now says working with local governments, states, and regional organizations to disseminate information. Those were the two main ones that I noted.
And that's consistent with what I have too. Let's move on to the. Were there any comments to? Did you have any to the financial capability assessment for the Clean Water Act? I didn't have any to that one. I think that was the water.
No,
work group.
that was from the water work group, and they approved it as it is.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'll pull up the community-based charge now. There were a few. Few comments that hopefully I captured correctly. Oh no, food waste. I'm so sorry.
Waste, yeah.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, there were some edits to that one as well.
I think
where did that one go?
I wrote that was related to funding for education.
Here it is.
Campaign.
Yes, I'm pulling it up now. It was to not only, there's a recommendation in there to support basic, provide support for basic public education, technical assistance for that, and capacity building. But there was, the group made an addition. Here we go. Sorry about that. There was another one but the one you're mentioning is right here. That in addition, we call out that funding for helping local governments establish public education campaigns is the recommendation.
Okay. Thank you for
recording
that. I was.
And here,
go
ahead. This is another one I believe the group recommended that the LGAC recommends that the EPA consider ways to incentivize, sustainable food management through mechanisms such as allowing local governments to receive credit. And the addition was made to include that other entities should be allowed as well, such as restaurants, to receive credit for meeting federal regulations by advancing food waste minimization and reuse programs in their communities.
Okay. Is that all the comments that you have, Victoria?
Those are the only two that I noted, but there may be.
That's all I had. So I think that
okay.
It. Now I thank you for recording those changes or suggestions there, because I was doing a lot of talking and trying to write too. So appreciate you.
No problem.
But for the most part, it was a good discussion that we had. I thought everybody contributed and was in favor of moving these letters forward with the few minor tweaks that we had there. So I thought it was a really good meeting today. So happy to report that. And, another thing the group discussed, possibly taking on a separate charge next year on a topic to be determined. We sort of ran out of time before we had to had much discussion on that, but that's something that we'll do at our first meeting next year, talk about that some more and try to flesh that out. But other than that, that's all I had to report. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Brian. you did a quick turnaround today, both you and Victoria and all the members of SCAS, and I appreciate that. At this time, I'll move on to the Air Work Group. And as you know, Commissioner Libby Szabo was not able to attend this meeting, and I'm going to call on her Vice Chair, Carvel Lewis, to report. He is the Vice Chair of the Air Work Group.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. I do apologize. I've been on for both portions, and if you all don't remember, my family owns funeral homes. So the work I was doing earlier would not have been suitable for video. We have had wonderful discussions thus far as it relates to our Air Work Group. Most of you have been briefed on all of that in terms of our discussions on ethylene oxide and how we want to give better definitions and generalizations for that particular topic. With our meeting with SCAS in October, we got a lot of feedback that we were able to reiterate earlier today in terms of considering that air pollution in some of our localities is generated in our neighboring jurisdictions. The fact that we have to take into account background and natural air pollution that can't be controlled by local governments, such as prescribed forest burns and dust in desert areas. And members also indicated the need to get input from their technical staff in order to provide better feedback. And I remember that one of the things that we talked about was to utilize the expertise of organizations within our own states. And I know that the Commissioner of Agriculture for Georgia, Gary Black, mentioned this, and I mentioned that we have associations, regional associations that provide technical assistance for a lot of these areas. As a matter of fact, when I received my appointment, I actually went to our regional commission and met with those individuals to provide me with background so that I would have a suitable knowledge base. And I chuckle every time we're on a call and someone says, I am the science advisor for Georgetown. Equipment County is the second smallest county in the state. The only advisor we have for some topics is called Ruby. But the other topic was just talking about community-based environmentalism at EPA. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the report. Obviously, we do have a draft letter regarding the national program guidances that will cover the years 2022 to 2023. And as noted from the SCAS report, there is a requested addition to that, an edit. And at this time, it would be appropriate for us to deliberate that letter. And I will open the floor to anyone that has comments. And I believe we have the letter on the screen before us at this time. And if you'd raise your hand, actually, I can't see hands raised, but Victoria can, and she'll prompt me to recognize someone.
Excuse me. Yes, I'm monitoring that as well as Kurt and Will. And if you want to speak, just raise your, or you can also just unmute yourself and speak out.
Okay, well, this is Victoria Reinhardt, and I've raised my hand, so I might as well just speak out. One thing that I think was brought up at the SCAS meeting, which I think is important, actually impacts every one of these letters. And that is specifically calling out tribal governments. And my suggestion would be that whenever we specifically call out local governments, that we simply add the words "and tribal governments," local and tribal governments. Because I think that it's incredibly important to make sure that they are included. And what I heard from, I don't remember which commissioner or supervisor it was that unless it's specifically called out, it is not assumed that that is a local government. So that is my suggestion that I would have, if mine had been first, I would have put it there. But simply where there's a statement that says local government, put local and tribal governments would be my suggestion.
Victoria, Ludwig and Reinhardt, would it be also appropriate to recognize territorial? How are those entities regarded?
I believe that they are included in local governments. It was pointed out that tribal governments are not specifically. So I believe that territorial governments, just like municipal, township, county, whatever the borough, whatever it is, if there's a local government there, I believe that that is included, but it was noted that tribal governments were not.
Thank you.
And this is Commissioner Lewis. If I am not mistaken, we covered this, Victoria Ludwig, in one of our discussions previously, and it could just be an oversight on our part with the air work group, but I thought that we did make the suggestion that was just made to add on tribal governments, and that everyone else was covered under that heading.
That sounds right. I think what I can do going forward is make some line edits that really make that a stronger statement, perhaps put it at the top. And I think I would add, as far as territories, looks like the mayor from Puerto Rico is occupied, but we might want to consider calling that out as well. You might want to consider calling that out as well.
I think it would be probably wise for us to look into how the federal government recognizes territories. I do think that tribal is one that you do have to name for it to spread to their eminent domain, so to speak.
Well, and Madam Chair, this is Victoria Reinhardt again, and the fix on this is truly very easy, and that is in the recommendations. If territorial is supposed to be in there as well, but to be local, tribal, and territorial governments, if territorial needs to be called out. So you simply have to add words of those few words in wherever it says local government, just local, tribal, and possibly territorial government. Governments, I guess it would be.
I would
thank you.
Agree.
Yep, that's an easy fix.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chairman, for that words. We strongly appreciate that. We talk about the asthma and chronic respiratory diseases in Puerto Rico, and we feel honored that you're taking into account our words. Thank you so much.
Outside of the points that have been made in regards to tribal and territorial, are there any other requested edits or thoughts in regards to the letter moving forward? I know we can't see hands on telephones. If anybody's on a phone that needs to make a comment, please just speak out.
It looks like
I would like to say something, if I could.
Please go ahead.
Carmen Ramirez here from California, and I'm looking at this, especially what is highlighted down here, wildfires in Canada affect communities. And I know that in California, our border communities, I would say particularly the border crossings with Mexico, they're really impacted by the emissions from under-regulated trucks going back and forth to bring produce or whatever. And it's not something that's easy to handle, because there's no way that at this time the state or the federal government can really regulate emissions from another country. So I would like to add something about contamination from activities across the border, across the national border.
In the paragraph above, there is a notation about the 4,000 diesel trucks along the border.
I see that now. Yeah, maybe adding. Well, I don't have a number of the diesel trucks. I bet it's pretty similar at the Mexicali Calexico crossing at the California border.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty close to the Arizona border. And then we have the Tijuana border and Tecate border, which I've been to many times. And there's a lot of truck traffic and very unregulated. So I see it there. So that's fine. Thank you.
Other points? If there are no further comments, I would ask that there be a motion to support this letter with edits.
As Bruce Brocker, I'd like to make a motion that we send this letter with the edits.
Is there a second?
Second, Carvel Lewis.
Thank you. All in favor signify with a voice vote of aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you very much. And now I'll move on to our Revitalizing Communities work group and call on Commissioner Victoria Reinhardt, who chaired this group. You give us a
Thank
recap.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we have been very busy, and I want to give a special appreciation to Commissioner Black. I believe it's Commissioner, or is it Secretary? Anyway, he has been very good. He is Vice Chair of the Revitalizing Communities Work Group, and we really worked hard to make sure that we got the involvement of all of the members in trying to clarify our roles. And I appreciate your Commissioner Barnes, your leadership in that as well. So we had a number of things that we looked at. In June, we had a briefing on the Office of Land and Emergency Management and their work, and talked about a number of different issues. And actually, I'll go through those issues because we ended up pulling out some of those. Some of the issues were recycling and sustainable management of food during COVID-19, general anaerobic digestion efforts, anaerobic digestion data collection project, 2020 anaerobic digestion opportunities, and peer network group, food too good to waste. So at our July meeting, we focused in on food waste, and we do have a letter that I'll be going over. At our August meeting, we looked at the RCRA Corrective Action Program, and I should also note that we earlier in the year did finalize the risk communication report as well. And then we also really worked very hard on the local government, or the initiative for a community-based environmentalism. And so I do have 2 letters that I would like to present. Is that appropriate at this time?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Move forward.
Let's start with the LGAC letter on sustainable management of food. As was pointed out by Victoria Ludwig, there was one change in that that really wanted to bring in the idea of incentivizing the food industry, such as restaurants, and so that was added. I also would like to add to our recommendations as we move forward that, again, where it says local government, to have it inserted as local, tribal, and territorial governments. And so that's, as we said, a pretty easy fix. I think those were the only changes on this then. And I just want to thank SCAS for the wonderful conversations we've had a couple times now, and today especially, in trying to make sure that we had clarifications. It did not change the gist or the themes within the recommendations, but it did clarify things, which I think is incredibly important. And with that, I would move approval of this letter.
Is there a second?
Mayor Aponte, second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Then we will move this one forward. Victoria, go on with the next letter.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I did note, or I saw that Victoria Ludwig also put up the public education funding, which had been reviewed earlier too, so that was included. So this one is the LGAC letter on community-based environmentalism. This one was especially fun, I think, because we got to get the comments. One of the things that was asked for were, tell us what's happening in your local communities, and people really stepped up and gave ideas of what they have done in their communities. So again, one of the things that we need to do here is to change wherever it says local government to local, tribal, and territorial governments. And I don't see that we had any other changes. Victoria Ludwig, did we have any other changes?
I think, yeah, here's the recognition of tribal governments, and I will add territorial. Yes. There was this one about including local governments. This might be a good summary to go over, because the recommendations are rich, because we got a lot of rich feedback. Here's a good summary of what the recommendations are, and these two changes are the ones that I noted from that the SCAS would like to add.
Okay, and obviously the one that's working with local governments. Okay, so yes, well, you can see the two that are highlighted, but generally more funding, accessible and effective technical support, streamlined EPA resources, transparency of available funds, which is incredibly important, help applying for grants, and less red tape, and that's especially important for the small communities that don't have the wherewithal to apply for the grants because of what is needed to do that. More focus on partnership and less on enforcement. Special consideration for small communities in border states, which has been brought up here as well. Technical resources to assist with environmental compliance, and improve notice of the availability of assistance, especially for small and medium-sized cities. The Clearinghouse, the administrator mentioned this and how important it is, but to learn about grants, technical assistance programs, information resources, training, and streamlining the processes and decentralized channels for accessing EPA resources. Sometimes you can kind of get lost in that. Working with state and regional organizations to disseminate the information, making them partners, more ways to reach EPA directly, working with community-based organizations to solve local environmental problems. And the bottom one, I think, is something that we've seen in other letters too, or the theme of it anyhow, is that one size does not fit all. And thank you for that suggestion, Victoria. I probably should have done that on the previous one as well.
No problem.
Well, we have before us a...
oh, yes, I will move that, Madam Chair.
Okay. Maybe I should ask if there's any deliberation. Is there anything that anyone else would like to add to this letter before we take a vote and get a second? Not hearing anyone, I will ask for a second to.
This is Bruce Bracker. I will second.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the waterwork group, and I will recognize Secretary Michael Scoos, who has chaired that, and he'll give us a recap of his meetings.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to take the opportunity to thank Administrator Fulton and the SCAS work group for participating in all of our meetings. On June 9th of this year, we had a meeting with updates on the national water issues. We had updates on WOTUS, updates on the Clean Water Act Section 401 certification rule, updates on harmful algal blooms, as well as questions on the transboundary water issues. As a result of that meeting, the two groups asked that at our July meeting that we have a discussion on the Clean Water Act Section 401 certification rule. And that's what our July meeting focused on. The members asked some clarifying questions about specifics of the rule. And members noted that some aspects of the rule could have some negative impacts on local governments and be asked that they be given an opportunity to comment on rules in the future before they go out and are made final. Members also agreed that LGAC's input going forward should focus on how the rule can best be implemented and before it's finalized. Members expressed the need to consult their state government agencies in order to provide meaningful and accurate input on implementing issues such as this. Our October 7th meeting, we focused on financial capability assessment for the Clean Water Act. EPA staff gave a really good presentation and explaining the 2020 financial capability assessment. Members' questions, they were primarily focused on concerns related to how the proposed changes might negatively impact or burden some designations in the Act. The EPA staff clarified that although the proposed FCA might sometimes result in longer timelines, it includes scheduling considerations related to environmental justice, low-income communities. And then the second topic was ideas on the approach for community-based environmentalism at the EPA. So that's the report on the meetings the three meetings that we held again with SCAS, and I really want to commend all the members of both groups for their participation in all three of those meetings. As a result of the last meeting, Madam Chair, there is a draft letter on the financial capabilities assessment for the Clean Water Act, and the LGAC recommended that EPA commends them for updating the FCA agreement because it's been 20 years since that was done last time. And the LGAC supports the inclusion of new metrics in the 2020 FCA that will give more accurate indicators. LGAC also recommends the EPA provide specific examples and scenarios in the guidance to hopefully avoid some confusion and miscommunication. There were concerns that even though the high burden designation results in a longer schedule length, it may not be necessary or be beneficial, as it could prolong the time that it takes to get funding and other things out the door. So, Madam Chair, that's an overview of our meetings as well as the letter that we have, the draft letter that we have up for consideration.
Thank you, Secretary Scoos. Certainly you all have discussed a number of different topics, and appreciate the work that all of your committee members and SCAS, as they have participated with you thus far. I don't believe there were any edits from our SCAS meeting earlier today. Am I correct, Victoria?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah,
They
the
approved
letter-
it out
Yeah,
as
Madam
is.
Chair.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I guess the only
Correct.
thing would be to perhaps add territorial governments, where we have talked about, well, we do state tribal governments and Puerto Rico. So that does take care of that, I think.
Madam Chair, this is Victoria Reinhardt again, and again, I think it's again the same fix that is in the others as well.
So I would ask that there be a motion.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Barnes, Bruce, Supervisor Bracker has his hand raised.
I'm sorry. Mr. Bracker.
Okay, making sure I'm unmuted. Yeah, one of the things they were talking about the earlier meeting was to always include the tribal, territorial, and government entities. Thank you.
Right.
Madam Chair, I would move approval of the letter.
With edits.
And Madam Chair, I second the motion.
Thank you. Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. We will move that letter forward also. Now we get to have a good discussion about 2021. And I'm going to open the floor for members. We'd like for you to offer up ideas, main concerns, and look at these various issues that you bring forward, and talk about the issues that you think need the most attention, that are impacting we local governments.
Commissioner Barnes, excuse me, I did take the liberty to add those to a Word document because I don't know if all of the members had received those. That I think was so I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
Yeah, that way, folks. These are the ones, just to remind you, these were concerns that were submitted by members in advance of the May meeting. The first 7 were the most frequently mentioned by members.
So that gives us a point to kick off and have discussion. I see a hand raised from Bruce Bracker. Commissioner Reinhardt too.
Okay, Bruce, did you want to speak first, or did you just not put your hand down before? Okay, well, I will go ahead then. I do think that there are some of these that are going to be more work potentially as far as what is happening. I mean, the WOTUS implementation, that's going to be an important one, but I don't know that it's more of an update because it is being implemented, and how it's implemented is important, obviously. But I look at the climate change impacts and how it impacts everything else on this list, and really think that we need to have the work groups maybe pick some of these to figure out what is EPA doing and where are they at in their policy development. Because that is primarily what we do, is that we provide direction and guidance and recommendations on what the EPA is currently taking on as a priority. So I think comparing those to the EPA's priority.
I'm trying to figure out who I need to get in touch with at the Rotary Club regarding the
Okay.
park at the entrance.
Bruce, you're still on. Okay. Anyhow, aligning them with what's happening at the EPA, I think is probably going to be the best way. And there may be even something they're working on that we don't have on this list. So that would be my thought, is that there are some things that are going to come higher on the list simply because of what the EPA is working on. But the list, it's a good list. I know that from the Revitalizing Communities group, you could tell that we talked quite a bit about the anaerobic digestion and what we can do, and that's mostly in the food waste area, but that also applies to other parts of the solid waste management system. Thank you.
Other thoughts or opinions? Additions to the list?
I do have just a general comment that I think that actually I think climate change impacts most of these items, and I don't know that this is ranked in any particular order, but I do think that that is making things difficult for lots of us, I would say particularly for us, maybe not particularly, but from my standpoint here on the coast, because of the impact on our coastline and infrastructure and sea level rise. And we have, like many others, experience of fires. So that's just sort of a general comment about how all of these things seem to have a layer of a climate change issue on it. So.
Others?
Madam Chair, there's one that I included in my submission relative to reflection on priorities here in the New England area. And I don't see it on the list, but it's one that is taking up considerable time, effort, and planning. And that's the issue of emerging contaminants. Emerging contaminants particular to pharmaceuticals and personal care products. We all know the capabilities of our treatment plants, and on the whole, they were all designed and the like for what would be flushables. And what we're seeing in those flushables today is seriously increasing relative to exotics, and the context within the water world of the vital nature of beginning to try and design, upgrade, and whatnot, and accommodate what is in the effluent is such that we're going to be spending a tremendous amount of time, effort, and money on these emerging contaminants. So I think it should be on the list. I, like most of you, view these as priorities. I'm not sure we're actually looking for a 1 through 10 or whatever priority list, but emerging contaminants, in my estimation, has to be included in our list.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and was thinking about that when I read the list earlier today. Certainly that's been brought to my attention here in Catawba County. Are there others that have? This is certainly a list to add to. I think we do need to have some sense of what EPA is working on. I know that for example, PFAS is something that has risen to a high level of attention and is being worked on by multiple academic facilities throughout the United States. But certainly want to make sure that we capture all the issues that we can, and then maybe try to break these out as to which work groups should review them. And also keep in mind that SCAS has said they would like to have a specific charge that they would be working on also. So others for comment.
Commissioner Barnes, Bruce Bracker has his hand raised.
Yes, Mr. Bracker. I'm not sure that he ever put his hand down. If you want to make a comment, please unmute.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
My apologies for my technical ineptness this afternoon.
We all have them, don't worry.
Anyhow, I like the potential for future contaminants that Mr. Poltak was talking about, especially the pharmaceuticals. I think another thing that we're having problem with small counties and small municipalities is recycling programs, because there's been such a huge shift in what is considered recyclable. So thank you.
Yes, and even what we think is recyclable, I've got an adjoining county that is refusing to take glass. And we have different issues across the nation in terms of recycling in general. So that's a good one.
In our community, we can't do anything with glass. We're trying to come up with ways to use it in our public works department.
Mm. Other points? Would somebody elaborate? I know COVID is an issue for all of us and all the many things that it has brought to our attention. But can we noted COVID-19 and environmental concerns. What are specific concerns in the environmental field that relate to COVID?
Commissioner Barnes, I think I can go back and look at the notes, but I seem to recall from the submissions that were made for the May meeting that there was one example of disinfectants, the increase of using disinfectants with the COVID-19. How can we do that safely and not adding to toxic waste in that regard?
Thank you. Are there any other ideas that we would like to look into? I know Secretary Skews, you had a time that you were in the EPA, and you have talked about sometimes maybe we need to know more importantly what they are looking at. You want to expand on that thought?
No, it was USDA.
USDA.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. There needs to be, I think, more and much better communication between the two agencies. And I think there needs to be better communication, not just between those two agencies, but through the state governments. And that this is one area where I think that the LGAC can play, in my opinion, a really important role in that communication with EPA, with the states, with local governments, that, in my opinion, has not been the best in the past. So I think there's an opportunity for everyone to work together on that communication. When I look at this list, there are numerous items on this list where, you know, input from our local communities and our states are going to be extremely helpful in the decision-making process.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd also like to add that I view this effort at this point in time, and I very seldom use that term, but in time, as casting a net, if you will, over identification of what our priorities should be. There are a number of shortcomings relative to making significant improvement in our environmental quality, whether it be water, air, whatever the case may be, that will be initiated. Certainly changes of major proportions will take place within the agency, given the nature of what took place in the election process. So when we have this list in front of us now, if we can make it as comprehensive as possible, it allows us and affords us the opportunity to adjust and work with whatever the new leadership will be bringing to that agency. And thusly, that's where I'm coming from when I look at what we're suggesting here. So for example, if I look at the water quality issues in our nation, one of the issues that isn't addressed per se, but is partially captured in the list that we have so far, is the whole concept of how the Clean Water Act is not well addressing non-point sources, which is probably the major contributing factor in our nation today, whether it's east here in New England or west or southwest or northwest, whatever the case may be. And with that said, does that speak to the necessity of taking a hard look finally with a receptive potential EPA to updating that Clean Water Act, which hasn't been addressed but once in 1986 since its inception in 72, so that we can do a better job with all of this? So I'm satisfied that with the additions that we talk about here today, from the perspective of water in general, that net is pretty well defined by us, and we'll see where we can go with the receptivity that may be new in place to some of these priorities that we've had as local communities with the new leadership.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Matt Cerncy, Mayor, City of Hawthorne. Just like to add also, as looking down the list, the recycling programs, and somebody may be able to enlighten me a lot on this as well, is we've had a lot of people, especially down here in Florida, start looking at the waste to energy type
right.
opportunities. And they, I made the mistake of calling them a recycler, and they're definitely not a recycler, they say. They're a reuser. And so maybe having some kind of discussion about whether it's recycling or reusing, if we can tie some of those in together, I think it has both the same intentions, or maybe it doesn't, but at least have that discussion of what's the difference and how maybe we can provide resources that have a similar outcome.
Right. Right. I have a waste energy facility at my landfill, so I know it kind of faded for a while, and I think it's now being re-energized to have people to look at those technologies again, because there have been some major shifts in that.
This is Joan Lee from Polk County, Minnesota. So actually, our county is very fortunate because we worked with area counties and we have a recycling facility. Plus, we also have the waste management and the energy. So, and then plus we've also added composting. So we're kind of trying to, you know, it's like a one-stop shop for, you know, any type of garbage. And so like one of the things that we do is the garbage that does not go out to the landfill, that can't be recycled, we burn in our facility, and then we in turn sell that steam to surrounding businesses within the complex there. So, you know, there's all those things, it can work together.
Sounds like a good visit to make to see what you all are doing.
Well, our door is always open.
Thank you. Others, things that are positive and negative in your communities. Well, I think we have quite a list. I do personally think that we will see some shift within EPA with the new administration, and think that these are all points that we can keep in mind, and certainly look forward to seeing what a new administration brings to the table, and maybe they will be wanting to present to us some of their points that they have as priorities as we move forward. But I'm going to ask that at this time, are there any items that or anything that you would like to bring before this committee? Any member is certainly welcome to do that at this time. You're all being very quiet, and I know it's getting late.
Hey, Madam Chair, this is Jeff.
Yes.
So just reflecting back on that list, and it got pretty extensive, but it looked to me like there are several natural breaking points. You got your water group, and you got some infrastructure stuff, and I bet if we take a little time, you know, offline, but Victoria can help us, and the executive committee, we can break those things up into pieces and get them to our working groups and committees to start, you know, rolling up their sleeves and tackling. I think this is a great start for next year. And I think it's really important for the next administration to see the thoughts of the LGAC, and then add on what they're thinking as well. We may be able to influence a little bit from our observations from around the nation.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. We certainly have a broad swath and represent a lot of the nation, since we go from Puerto Rico all the way out to California with our membership. And I appreciate your observation. Anyone else? And I recognize it takes a few minutes to unmute yourself. That's something I genuinely forget.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I think a huge thank you to the EPA staff, Victoria, Jack, all of the people that have been so helpful during this process. But I really do think that our committee members have just continued to impress me. And so a lot of thought and effort has gone into all of the work that we've done, and I know we'll do that in the new year as well. So just a big thank you.
Thank you. Well, I agree, and really want to commend the members. You've done a wonderful job of working within the work groups, bringing forward a lot of information. We've been asked for a number of points of how to make things better within the EPA and what would make it better for us in local governments. I want to certainly thank Britt Carter. She has been with us all the way. And Wayne Hurd has worked very hard to help us wrap our arms a bit around how to get the silos down from within the EPA. So at this time, I'm going to call on Britt Carter and ask her for some closing remarks.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Barnes. It's been a pleasure and an honor working with the LGAC and SCAS over the past couple of years and getting to know everyone and listening to your issues. And, you know, just today, you can see how valuable your input is. And, you know, I really enjoyed listening to the deliberations and advice and your input. And, you know, the EPA is in good hands moving forward into next year and the years to come with the LGAC and SCAS here to provide input and hold the EPA accountable for our different policies and just, you know, improve and how to make them better for everyone in the local communities and states. So Commissioner Barnes and Secretary Whitty and Administrator Fulton, I want to thank you all for your leadership. I know this has been a very interesting year for everyone. So, and finding the time to put into the LGAC and SCAS has been difficult. And look at all the wonderful things we're able to produce at the end of the year, even in spite of those. So thank you for that. And I want to thank all of the members today for your participation. As you can see, this is what the LGAC and SCAS are capable of. And, you know, we just look forward to your, you know, what you decide to tackle in the new year. And I know our staff at the EPA is looking forward to reading your letters of recommendation and working on your advice into their policies. So thank you everyone again and hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you, Britt. Jack Bowles, do you have some comments for us?
Oh, just real briefly, thanks to everyone so much for your time. Your time is really valuable, and we know you're volunteering it. And you are making a difference. These letters of advice are excellent. Just reading through them, it's just amazing how many insights and great ideas have come out of your work groups over the past few months. And as you saw in the video, the administrator really understands the importance of the LGAC and how you can impact agency policy and help EPA make its programs work better for y'all and for everybody around the country. And again, it's one of the great pleasures of my job working with this group, and we look forward to continue working with you going forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, our next steps will be to finalize these letters, obviously, and present them to Administrator Wheeler. As we face the new year, we will continue with the work group meetings. They will probably start up in late January, early February. And so everybody stay tuned for Victoria's notifications in that regard. Just to let you all know that the EPA is preparing their solicitation for new members and reappointments for current members. And once that is published in the Federal Register, interested officials can submit an application. So that just wanted to let you know that that process will be prepared to go into the Federal Register very soon. I really want to thank Victoria. She has worked so hard, and this is a new role for her. Yay, Victoria. And it's a new role for me.
Thank you so much.
But we really appreciate all that you have done to make this meeting happen. I want to congratulate all of EPA on their 50th anniversary. They have done an excellent job of publishing that. I hope that all the members are getting all of the notifications of the work that has gone on within this agency. It's pretty astounding to see that. And in the course of our conversation today, I noticed I had another notification, so to read through and look forward to that. But does anybody else have something to bring forward? I appreciate everybody's time today.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Lewis.
Yes, ma'am. Don't want to prolong the time, but I was thinking we need to prepare ourselves for the next 2 years with the COVID pandemic. A lot of our smaller communities are going to be in financial peril. So if environmental impacts occur, we need to know or help find out if there's going to be financial assistance available through the EPA for those communities. And also, we need to partner with the League of Cities and probably NACO to find out what are going to be some of the future environmental impacts to some communities that are not represented among us, the members, so that we can provide assistance to them. Thank you.
Thank you for that suggestion. Anyone else? Well, thank you each and every one for your participation today, both staff as well as members of this committee. I want to wish everyone a wonderful holiday season, a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and definitely let's look for a wonderful new year for each and every one of us and for your families. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting. You all have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Well, Kurt, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Went great. We really appreciate your help.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Y'all have a wonderful holiday, and maybe we'll be seeing you in the future.
All right. Take care. Thanks, Eric.
Oh, before we go, so the recording, I noticed Kurt was recording the meeting. So that recording is going to be available in what form again?
Well, that recording is a video file, and just regular. I think it's a way. I can't remember what Zoom's default is, but also the stream that we send to the public is recorded on YouTube.
Okay.
And that you can download, or I can Dropbox it to you or whatever. But
where can I download the stream from?
I'll send you a link to it.
Okay.
And I'll leave it up there. You can watch it as much as you want.
Great.
Okay.
Great. Really appreciate it. Will the link last? Like, can we put it on our website so people want to?
If you want me to keep it live, I sure will. It's no problem.
All right.
All right. Perfect.
I appreciate it.
All right. You bet. Take care.
I'll take care.
Who's user, Will?
What's that?
User at the very bottom there.
You really soft. You are soft. Your volume is really low.
Oh, sorry.
I noticed that. I mean, when you were talking about the hands too, I should have texted you. Yeah. Cool.
Oh, the three of us did. Who's user at the very
That's mine, my other computer.
So I went ahead and I need to turn this off because
You did what?
I was recording it. Remember, Victoria? I keep calling her. Victoria asked to tape the last hour and some of the meeting. So anyway, so I recorded that because I knew they would wanted this last piece for the transcript. But where does it download to?
Oh,
I was recording it. Remember, Victoria? I keep calling.
hang on one second.
Victoria asked to tape the last hour and some of the meeting. So
it's still recording right now on
anyway.
YouTube, so hold on one second. Hey, hang on one second.
So I recorded that because I knew they would wanted this last piece for the transcript.
Wait, Kurt.
But where does it download to?
Hey, Kurt. Hold on a second, okay? It's still recording on YouTube, so just hold on a moment. Trying to figure out how to stop.
Download to. Hey, Kurt. Hold on a second, okay?
There we go. There we go. Okay, cool. I couldn't figure out how to stop it. All right. So it's recorded